But I suppose what I'm saying to you is there's time for nuance, and there's also time to say something is unequivocally evil.
So recently, Hasan Piker, the streamer, went to Cambridge Union in Oxford. After his speech, he's taking photographs. A student comes up to him and starts to debate.
I think that it's important to understand the context in which violent resistance has evolved.
He's characterizing the events on October 7th as a violent resistance.
Whether it be Hamas or whether it be any militancy against like overarching oppressive colonial action.
It's the perfect example of the power of stories and how we take a story in our mind and we use that to rationalize atrocities we would never otherwise rationalize.
It's important when you're trying to solve a conflict or when you're trying to stop violence that you honestly say what happened. And what happened was,
I agree.
Murderous militants went in to a music festival and murdered hundreds of teenagers in cold blood and often massacred and mutilated them in ways that we have on camera.
What Hasan does in the face of that is, I'm just trying to acknowledge the complexity, the nuance.
Do you think that I think that it was wholeheartedly justifiable?
I think certainly you haven't been very clear in your condemnations at times, and I've watched what you've said.
Okay.
It doesn't seem, for example,
I
in the course of your talk, you didn't mention what happened on October 7th once.
Yeah.
And the topic of the speech was the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm not sure how you could gloss over that.
I've never said that October 7th is like the inception or the first stage in what has unfolded.
Because it's not the start of the conflict, that justifies not mentioning it all in your speech at Oxford about the Israeli-Palestine conflict.
There's a deliberate reason for why I did that, because I think it's important to understand the historical context in which violent resistance
There's no context for murdering hundreds of teenagers, is there?
You are the thing that should be resisted. If you were going in and raping someone and hauling women away, we know this happened.
One of the first images streamed by Hamas on October 7th. The high school basketball captain's body dragged into Gaza 14 months ago. Only 3 of the 7 kidnapped Americans still held by Hamas remain alive.
I don't think it's a contextual justification. I think it's offering background and analysis. Analysis is not justification.
So we're going to understand their mindset for why they raped those women and killed those children.
And that, especially when we talk about certain things, like certain subjects that are very difficult to broach in an open and honest manner, I think a lot gets lost in the nuance.
It's the subtle game of trying to claim that there's any understanding that can be brought in, that there's any negotiating this topic, that there's any debating this.
But I suppose what I'm saying to you is there's time for nuance, and there's also time to say something is unequivocally evil and something is unequivocally unjustifiable. And I'm wondering why you can say that correctly about the wealth of Israeli atrocities. That to actually fix this conflict and gain trust with people, you need to say that unequivocally about the murder of hundreds of teenagers at the Supernova Music Festival, their mutilation and often their... And I don't know why you can't say that.
But that is how people like Hasan Piker evade talking about October 7th, claiming that, well, it wasn't the start of the conflict, therefore I don't even have to mention it. It's far more complex, if I do have to mention it. It's violent resistance.
We have seen what's happened in American campuses and how much that's impacted American politics, possibly even the election. And it's happening in this country too. It's happening, I would say infecting, for want of a better word.
What you're going to see in this video is one of the most alarming examples of the power of stories and how we take a story in our mind and we use that to rationalize atrocities we would never otherwise rationalize.
I read with absolute horror about this Oxford Union debate.
The reason this is worth looking at is because this is a debate unlike any up until now. Yes, we had Hasan, a Twitch streamer, come to Oxford, but this is on another level.
We no doubt at all have a massive issue with anti-Semitism growing in this country, but particularly in the academic field.
Yes, so the moderator setting this whole thing up and supposed to be maintaining decorum took the opposing view. So he was against Israel in this debate, to be clear. He moved over to the opposition.
So the man effectively in charge of the refereeing the debate joined one side.
And attacked us personally.
Tell me.
It sounds as though they were trying to tip the scales in any way possible.
So first of all, I got expelled because I asked the president to kick out one of the students who took the hostage, Muslim, Arab, Israeli hostages kept by Gaza. They took the flyer that I printed, throw it on the ground and stamp on it. This is a disrespectful act against our hostages, Muslim hostages. And I could not agree to that. And instead of expelling him, he expelled me because I wouldn't continue. Now,
one of the other speakers is son of a leader of Hamas, and he defected, and he's been speaking out strongly.
Mus'ab said, if you have the opportunity and you knew about the 7th of October that's about to happen, will you alert?
If you knew what was going to happen and you could prevent it, let's just treat this like a thought experiment. If you could prevent October 7th, would you? He asked the audience.
If you knew about the impending massacre of 1,200
the rape,
people,
the killing, the
mutilation,
massacre,
and the hostage
kidnapping.
taking.
Would you report it to the authorities? If you do, raise your hand.
A quarter of the audience raised their hand.
3/4 of the people there said they wouldn't do that.
This is Oxford.
Can I say that is absolutely terrifying?
Throughout history, there have been those that have understood the power of story, and they realize that if they can sell the right story to people, then people will swallow anything. They'll accept anything, things that they would never otherwise accept.
Less than 5% in this room.
He says less than 5%. Even worse.
Raise their hands that they will report a massive terrorist attack that targeted civilians indiscriminately, that includes Arabs, Muslims, Jews, Christians, peaceful farming communities on October 7th, ethnically cleansing 20 Jewish communities because of their ethnicity and because of their religion.
This is bigger than just Hasan Piker or a single debate. It's bigger than Oxford or any single university. This goes to the very heart of human nature. And this exchange exemplifies that perfectly.
What's happening in Gaza is not the same, because you are the one who's taken the side of terrorists, knowing exactly your role, and you are enjoying it. But at some point, you will have to deal with the consequences, because everything is recorded against you.